Hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode of I'll Call You Right Back podcast with me, your host. My name is Chad Medved. This is my podcast that you're tuning into. Appreciate you being here. We're back after a 2-week hiatus. Okay, I had to have a little mental hiatus to work on some business, to work on some things behind the scenes for the podcast, and it was much needed and much appreciated. Went to Deep Creek with some friends, had some good times down there, hung out with my wife, hung out with the dog. Really got some R&R, which is, it's due these days. We're in some wild times. The world's in some wild times. So every now and then you got to take some time out and just relax. So these last 2 weeks, I did just that. And hopefully you went back in the catalog, into the phone book of names that I have, and picked a name to explore if you haven't already. For the last 7 years, I have been highlighting the community of Pittsburgh in a way that I don't think many others are. I sit down with interesting people and talk to them about what they do and how they got to that point in their lives. Over the last 7 years, I've spoke to over 280 different guests on I'll Call You Right Back podcast, and I am very, very proud of that. Each and every week, I do not take for granted the network that I have built, the people that I have met, and all the great conversations that I have had these last years, and I am excited for the future. I'm excited for all the things that are happening coming up, and that's really what these last 2 weeks off were working up to. I got some shit in the works, you know what I mean? But yeah, if you enjoy the show, if you enjoy the podcast, and you want this podcast to grow, and you want to help me out in doing that, there's some ways that you could support the show. You could rate and review the podcast on Spotify and Apple, like I said. You could subscribe and thumbs up this video if you're watching on YouTube right now. But ultimately, you could share this podcast with a friend. Any way that you want to share it. Whether you send them an episode that's just audio or send them this YouTube link. If you share this episode, it is greatly appreciated by me, and it is a huge help in spreading the word of I'll Call You Right Back podcast. 7 years I've been doing this, and I still feel like, the word could be spread a little bit more. So, I'm still on the rooftop screaming and shouting, I'll call you right back. And I appreciate all the people that support me and that have supported me along the way. I am, working to make some of this, working to make some improvements on this show. And it has been going well these past. Absolutely hilarious. As I was talking to Yins and telling Yins about all these updates I have been making with the podcast and how things have been going swell, my my camera just completely shits the bed and restarts. So that's why there's that clip right there. But yeah, we're out here working, baby. You can't time it better than that. I'm a one-man show that's trying to make this shit happen, and anyone that's supporting it is greatly appreciated. We got some events coming up. Save the dates right now. That's all I could give you right now is some save the dates. September 21st, Saturday, September 21st, I got some shit popping. And then Friday, October 18th, I got some shit popping. We got some shit popping for the Halloween season. I am so excited about it. I will give you a hint. I'm teaming up with the Berg Bus on both of these events. It's going to be a hell of a time. If you would like to keep up to date on the events and all the things that I got in the works, you could follow me right now at I'll Call You Right Back. It is, probably your best interest to follow me on Instagram. That's really where I'm most active. Everything else is, it's stressful. Keeping up with all these social medias, come on, it's hard, it's tough. Follow my Instagram, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and help this guy out here. You know what I mean? We got some good stuff in the works. We got some good guests for the future, but the reason that everyone is here this week, we sit down with a great guest who's doing some really great stuff for the city. Jeff Betten is a local person in the Pittsburgh music scene. He's been very active in the scene for many years. He is a musician himself, and he has been working on opening Pittsburgh's very first vinyl processing plant right in our city. He accomplished this feat back in 2022 at the end of the year, and then they started taking orders the first of 2023, and he's been ripping ever since with his team down there at Hellbender Vinyl. Hellbender Vinyl is located in Lawrenceville, and like I said, it has been open for just over a year now. That's how long they've been ripping and tearing, but they are a custom record processing plant. You can get everything from 7, 10, 12-inch records all the way up to, completely customized splatter patterns on your vinyl. Jeff was nice enough to have me into Hellbender Vinyl, and I got to take a little tour of this, this record processing facility. I got to make my own record. I got to see how records are, made from beginning to end, which is, ultimately my goal as this podcast, was made. My goal is to be a Dirty Jobs and a Mike Rowe, and this is the closest way I've been able to make that happen. But things are starting to happen where I'm able to work in some of these tours, some of these behind the scenes perks, and Jeff was nice enough to have me down, and I'm working on some video footage. We're cutting that up. We're going to put some of that out on YouTube of my experience down there at Hellbender Vinyl. But until I put that out, you could enjoy this conversation with me and Jeff Betten. He stops by the studio this week, and we talk about everything from his life and how he got introduced to music, to how he acquired a record label, to ultimately how he started Hellbender Vinyl, and how that was created in Lawrenceville, and how it is ran today. So, without further ado, episode 287 maybe? I don't know. After 7 years, you kind of forget the numbers. Episode 286 of I'll Call You Right Back podcast with Jeff Betten of Hellbender Vinyl.
I gotta use the telephone.
Hello?
Telephone.
I'll call you right back. Call you right back.
Telephone.
I'll Call You Right Back podcast. How was your day today?
It was good. Yeah,
Busy?
Always busy.
Always busy?
Yeah.
All right, yeah.
Never a dull
Tossie's
moment.
on.
Let's do it.
It's always kind of a benefit to interview like an audio guy, like someone that's like a musician or something, just because you can't really blame people who've never done interviews to not be conscious of pulling away from the microphone.
Totally.
Which is I get it, but I always never want to interrupt someone when they're mid story and they're drifting back a little bit, and I just want to be like, hey, can you come up on that mic?
You gotta get on that mic.
I know you got to, but you can hear it. So now it's nice to have a fellow audio guy. But so you had a good day today?
Yeah. We got our Better Business Bureau accreditation today. We had been accredited actually, but we got the little official logo that I could slap on our website too, which is always a cool.
No, I mean this is interesting that you just bring this up, because everyone hears of the Better Business Bureau. Mm-hmm. Okay. What exactly is that to a business? If you could dumb it down for me.
So the best way to dumb it down is, have you heard of a trust badge before? For a website? Do you know what that is?
No.
It's kind of have you ever been on a website and you're going to buy something and it says Norton Secured or something like that?
Yeah.
Those are called trust badges. It's just, they're little things on websites that
Accolades.
make you feel better about I can trust that, I can buy something from this website and it's going to be cool. They're not going to rip me off or anything like that.
Yeah. A little bit of accreditation through a certain level. And Better Business Bureau. So who runs it? Is it like national? Is it like
yeah, it's national. I for the longest time I thought it would, like the government ran it. So I think that's kind of a common misconception. But
it makes me feel better because I was like, is that government ran? But so like, what do you do? Do people come in and like inspect your stuff to get this little badge?
Yeah, I mean they just kind of check to make sure you're on the up and up, and it's not super rigorous. Yeah. They didn't ask me for like a DNA sample.
Piss in a cup. Hey, you got to piss in a cup before I leave. That's cool though. I mean, like it's exciting as a business owner to just like keep moving forward with this stuff.
Yeah, totally. Especially too because we've talked about this before, but our products cost a lot of money too. And I actually had a customer reach out at one point and say like, hey, before I put an order in, like you guys are legit, right? I just wanted to email you guys and check for.
Really? I mean, that's happened where you've had people like, not sure if like you were like a legitimate business?
Well, it actually happened to us once, and it was from a customer in North Carolina. So they weren't local. They weren't familiar with us or anything like that. And it was recommended through a friend of a friend thing. So I can kind of understand where they were coming from. Where they're like, my friend just told me about you. You're kind of a new business. I don't really know. And I mean, it's not a problem that we've had a lot.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess it's interesting to even think about as like a, for lack of a better term, a mom and pop record facility. You know what I mean? Like you guys are small compared to the few other ones that are somewhat local. So I guess that's interesting to think about that. Like if people would be like curious if you were a legitimate business, because it's not like a business you would see popping up all the time.
Right. And I figure anything to make someone's put someone's mind at ease, basically.
Yeah, make it simpler for a sale. Like don't even have a question of it all. That's interesting. Yeah. Now so I mean and you and I've talked before. We went. You toured me through Hellbender Vinyl down in Lawrenceville, which was absolutely a mind blowing experience for me.
Yeah, dirty jobs.
I mean, for me, dude, that's like literally my goal in life is to. That's all I wanted to do was be micro and dirty jobs, and I'm trying to manifest that in my own way with these, couple GoPros and one of my good buddies. But yeah, I mean, like it was super cool to have like, an experience where I could go in and, kind of an experience it that way. Like I always have people come in the studio and like talk to me about what they do, but I'm always trying to like, use that little in where I'm like, I'd love to do anything, if you want to like bring me through a tour here, like I got to tour dairy farm and stuff. I'm like, yeah, dude, I want to, anything I could do. But one of my goals was to make a custom record at one point. And you made that happen.
Oh,
like, strictly from TikTok. I saw it on TikTok.
Nice.
But so give me a little breakdown of who you are and what Hellbender Vinyl is.
Yeah. So I'm Jeff Betten. I'm a lifelong Pittsburgher. It was great seeing the Montour Trail as I came down here because I grew up in Robinson, so very close to the Montour Trail.
Yeah.
Basically have been a musician and a music lover my whole life, and I just keep walking through different facets of it. And then the vinyl plant just came about because we are in the midst of kind of a vinyl revival. It's been going on for a long time, but it's getting to the point where supply of vinyl records could not keep up with the demand fast enough, basically.
Yeah. Long process.
But people want vinyl, and there weren't enough vinyl factories making vinyl. So, I was one of the guys who's thinking like, well, there's not one of those in Pittsburgh or anywhere close to Pittsburgh, so we should have our own.
Yeah, like how do we make that happen?
Yeah.
So you're from Pittsburgh?
Mm-hmm.
Where and you grew up in Robinson, like you said. And can I ask how old you are?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, excuse me. So I'm 38.
38. Yeah. I mean, I never know how anyone is. And like, I mean, have you been in the music scene? Like you've been in bands and stuff like that for, a long time?
Yeah. I mean, I was always a band geek and, grammar school and middle school and high school. And then, I started playing guitar when I was a teenager because that's what you do when you're a teenager.
Absolutely.
You're like, oh yeah, I can play guitar.
and I mean, and you, so where music started from, elementary school, middle school?
Yeah.
How did you get introduced to it? What were you playing?
So I started playing the trumpet because I couldn't tell you why I picked the trumpet, but there's a couple of instruments. I think it was,
clarinet, flute,
saxophone,
trumpet.
yeah.
You had like the core five, and
that's what I was trying to remember. I was like, what were them? Yeah.
I never got to play an instrument, but like I remember that point, that fork in the road in elementary school where you're like you could start playing instruments or not. But you said you started playing the trumpet.
Yeah.
I mean, how long were you playing that?
So I actually moved to a bunch of different instruments, and maybe that's why I end up doing what I'm doing right now. I just like keep adapting and just changing things up every now and then, because when I got to middle school and then into high school too, they realized that I could kind of switch up and play anything that they needed.
Yeah.
So they basically were just like, okay, I'm a middle school band teacher, I'm a high school band teacher, and here are my students this year.
Yeah.
And so I was like, maybe you have a problem where you're like, okay, well, I have too many saxophone players, or I have, not enough, of this instrument.
You were a utility player. They could put you in wherever.
Yeah.
So music carried through your whole life.
Yeah, basically.
That's cool. So I mean, and you said high school is whenever you first picked up a guitar?
Yeah. I mean, it's, tales of this time. I thought I could, meet girls.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. With the case of guitar sitting next to at a party, you're the guy. Like you said, tales old as time. That's like the coolest thing you could think about doing.
Yeah, especially because I was like, I'm a band geek, so I'm like a pretty big nerd.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, but I know music, so if I can learn how to play guitar,
merge them together,
be kind of cool.
Yeah. Well, what kind of music were you listening to back then?
So I've always been into the 60s, 70s. This was kind of like my parents' record collections.
Yeah.
The Beatles, Beach Boys, Elton John.
Okay.
all the.
And were your parents like real into music?
Yeah. So neither of them play, but throughout the family tree, we've got lots of musicians too. And yeah, really just the love of music came through, especially from my mom, because she was always playing like the cool alternative bands from the 80s, because I was born in 85. So it was like, they're always listening to like the B-52s and like REM and Talking Heads.
Oh, that's cool. So you had a blend of it all, really.
Yeah.
That's neat. And I mean, like from a young age, I mean, obviously you work in a record facility now, but like you always had vinyl in the house?
Yeah, we actually, because I mean, I'm of that age where, we came, I'm such a weird age, because if you think about it, we saw the whole thing then kind of just circle back around itself.
Yeah.
Because when I was, we had tapes too, we had cassette tapes, but, my parents are from the 60s and 70s, and so what we had listening to in our house was their OG record collections.
Yeah, that was like their main form of like, how they consumed their music.
Yeah.
And it's so crazy to think about that. Like whenever you look at someone's record collection, compared to like, what kids have now,
Sure.
where it's like, I could go on a streaming service and you could have every playlist and, curate that all. But I mean, a record was like more of an experience. Like you had to, sit down, you had to, bring that record player over, plug it in. It was like a more, calculated experience. Like you're not really going to like go just put a record on for one track and then like pull it off. And it's just cool to think about like how, the older generations like can, that was just like a different way of listening to music now.
Yeah. And I think that's why it's coming back, because I think we're so tired of that. Well, and I always say, listen, you can have a Spotify account and then still listen to vinyl. There's no reason, you can't hold two different ideas in your head at the same time. But I think people are kind of like, it's nice every now and then to not be constantly shuffling or wondering what track I'm going to play next.
Yeah.
Or, there's something nice about just, getting a glass of wine, put a record on, just
going through the whole experience is like the artist probably intended to listen to.
Exactly.
You want to listen to, I mean, like it's so interesting because whenever we left Hellbender that day, and like I was, thinking about, you were working on a test pressing, and I was thinking about like that artist and like them getting a record. It's such a cool thing because I would assume, and these are just my assumptions, I would assume that like as they were creating that project, they would want it to ideally be consumed in its entirety. Sure. And I don't know, I feel like maybe the younger age doesn't really like, conceptualize that and think about it as much, because we just have these like singles that are released, TikTok songs that are famous, and I don't know, it's just wild to think of the comparison. Now in high school you start playing guitar, and when does like playing in bands come into play?
Well, it kind of starts right away. I think we all just kind of found each other because there were already percussionists in the band camp or band class with us. So it was like, hey, you're a drummer. Do you want to play in a band with me? Sure. Great. Nice and easy. And then I had a friend who was like, okay, well, I'll play bass. And someone says, well, I'll be the singer. And then you just kind of all find each other. And
what grade is this? Like ninth grade?
Yeah, let's say 9th, 10th.
And like, what kind of music are you playing?
We're just kind of playing like fast garage rock. So this so my high school years are 2000 to 2004. So this is like the peak of like the garage rock revolution too, where it's like it's the Strokes, the Hives, the White Stripes.
Yeah.
And there's some 90s like alternative in there too, because
residing still from before.
Exactly. Yeah.
So Bush and all that.
You throw in some Green Day too and all that good stuff. Yeah.
That's cool. I mean, whenever you say that you guys were in a band, how serious were you taking it? Or is it like a pretty serious thing where you wanted to like start playing gigs and everything?
Yeah, I mean, I think about as serious as a couple of 16-year-olds who have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
Know what to do with anything. So, I always felt like, I was like, oh yeah, this is super serious. But we attempted to set up gigs, but, things,
Yeah, you're 16.
It's 16. A comedy of errors. Let's call it
just
that
figuring it out.
Yeah.
Now, in high school, what are you thinking you're doing for like a career? Like, what did you want to do? I assume that you didn't know that you wanted to, do a record processing facility. You know what I mean?
Well, when I was 16, I didn't say to myself, well, one day vinyl is going to come back in a big way.
Yeah.
And when I'm 33, I'm going to put a business plan together to create my own here in Pittsburgh, because there won't be one still. But I did actually, I did know from that age that I wanted to be in music, ideally a musician. But I was still super young and naive, and I was, I didn't think like, oh, well, I could still, I could pivot to be a manager or, a producer or anything else. But I definitely, I had a formative day where I was supposed to meet with a guidance counselor, and I was like, okay, well, I'm failing this class, I'm failing this class, like I'm failing science, I'm failing math. I was doing pretty bad, like not because I was like stupid, but you just
weren't interested.
I didn't have any interest in it, so I didn't bother doing any of the work. So I'm like failing all of these classes. I'm failing like 9 out of 10 of my classes right now, and I was like, but I'm getting an A in band class.
Yeah, it's like something you enjoy.
Yeah, and so I thought to myself, I'm pretty good at it, and I like it a lot. Maybe I should take it seriously as a career path.
So, getting out of high school, how do you, take it seriously? Like, what's your next step?
So I majored in music at CCAC. Again, sort of a compromise path of trying to figure out because I know I want to do music.
Yeah.
But
like a general education of the music. Mm-hmm.
But I'm still feeling my way around in the dark. So,
yeah.
I wanted to go to Pitt because I thought that Oakland was really cool. Club Lago still exists at the time, so I thought it would be a dream if I could get to Club Lago and just hang out like live a block from there and be able to hang out there as much as I wanted to.
Yeah,
as much as I was able to. Couldn't get in because I also did not care about the college application process, so it just didn't work out. And then so I was like, well, I'm not really interested in any other university. Community college was kind of the compromise with my parents, I guess, for lack of
I went there too. Yeah. Loved it. Which one did you go to? South?
I went to main campus, and also some of the classes that I wanted were only offered at the North Perry.
Yeah.
One. Yeah.
Yeah, classic. CCAC, love it. Yeah. It's a great time in life. I hosted a radio show there.
Oh, nice.
That didn't even play out to anyone. It only played in the cafeteria.
I love that.
It was hilarious. Passion project. So, you get out you go to CCAC and you major in music. What's the next step after that? Like, what are you doing during then? Are you playing shows with your band?
Yeah. And a lot of it too was just solo acoustic shows as well. So a little bit of anything and everything, and just kind of, a couple of years in the wilderness, just kind of figuring out my creative voice, figuring out what's going on.
You sing too? Mm-hmm. Okay. And I mean, like you're saying you're playing solo gigs. Like what is like your level of anxiety and, being scared on stage? Were you ever someone that was like nervous about that stuff?
Oh, I'm nervous talking to you right now.
This is the
this
least
is stage fright right now.
This is the least intimidating thing.
I know.
People really like, I mean, and I think that it's lost on me just because I've been doing it forever, but like people will come over and be like, they're nervous about doing this, but it's just like a regular conversation to me that like, I don't think, I don't remember that the other person doesn't really know exactly what they're getting into whenever they come over here. But yeah, either way, very low pressure.
Well, it's an audience still regardless. And I'm thinking of everyone who's going to listen to this and be like, what's up with that guy's high nasally voice?
No, I mean, but it's cool to hear about like all the stuff behind that. So, I mean, like you're actively like playing gigs and like doing solo stuff, playing in bands, and like just passionate about the music scene. Mm-hmm. And I mean, like, are you someone that's just are you doing things outside of just playing instruments? Like, are you running sort of like the managerial end of the band? Like, are you involved in that way?
There really wasn't anything to manage at the time. I just I was a guy with a guitar and friends that I sometimes played with, and I had at that time I had no clue what to do about anything. So I was booking gigs in the sense that like, okay, maybe I could call myself a booking agent, but I wouldn't because I was just trying to book myself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like you think that there's other people that are in bands that like I've known over the years that are just like, they don't really care about that end. They're just there. Sure. They show up and they play.
Sure.
But there's other people that like, kind of have that knack for wanting to be, more involved in the scene and more involved in that way. Yeah. And I would assume someone that, gets to where they are to wanting to open a record place, is somewhat, interested in the mechanics of it all.
Yeah, no, and I definitely found my way towards that eventually too. Even in high school, I actually, this was probably the first inkling that there was something more going on than like, I'm just going to be a guitar player or I'm going to play bass for my buddy's band. But I did a thing with Montour bands, just like everyone that I knew like in and around the area or that went to school with us. I basically like put on like an all-day music festival, and I just rented out like the local Lions Shelter Pavilion.
Wow.
Like, and in like the baseball park at Robinson Township.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, to the point where actually we didn't get in trouble, but the Robinson police did give me a call because they were like, "What's this I hear about? Like you're gonna do like your own version of Woodstock here?"
Hell yeah, that's pretty sick. That's I mean, I feel like that's a good inkling, and that's how you got involved from the beginning.
Yeah, and I realized that it was not something that everyone could do because my friends looked at me and they're like, "How are you doing this?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, it's easy.
It's a different type of madness." That's why, like, I don't know. I made the assumption you were somewhat that way, just because, like, if you're taking on this like feat of like this like record facility, sure. I'm sure it's you were more involved, but you get from your major at CCAC to what year did you get done there?
So it took me 08. It only took me 4 years to get my 2-year degree.
Yeah,
so.
Well, that's all right. It took me, you know what I mean? It takes just a couple extra. You got to get the full effect of it all, right. Full experience. So, I mean, 2008 to, you opening that, it's like, what's after school there?
So just, some more years just kind of trying to figure out my own creative voice because, for a long time I was just like, okay, well, I'm still this guy who's basically I'm trying to think of a way to put this, but I think a lot of people as artists basically they just start out as a cover band for their influences for like a really long time. Like I was super into the Beatles, so I was doing just kind of like a bad Lennon McCartney imitation for like a really long time until like I just took all of my influences, like everything that I was into, and I kind of just was like, okay, well, I'm not them. I like them, but I'm not them. I'm me. And so it took me a long time to kind of figure out that. So, started really around like when I was 26, 27, kind of figured that out, kind of started clicking. So I kind of changed up what I was doing, and I think I really kind of hit my stride with it. And that was around the point that I ended up taking over my first record label anyway. So then I got into the record label game, basically.
I mean, like, how does that happen?
Well, I was always desperate to be signed to a record label. So I was like always just very acutely aware of local people who were doing that. And I kind of made an effort to kind of figure out the mechanics of what they did and how they made things happen. And then one day, so I actually, and throughout all of that, I became aware of a friend of a friend was running a record label in Youngstown. And I found out one day he really didn't want to do it anymore because he had just had a daughter, so he was super busy. He was like, I'm not really going to have time for this anymore. And then I said, I would actually love to be able to take that over from you. You know, just pass the baton to me and I'll take it over. And so we did that. And so I name of that label is called Wild Kindness Records. It's actually the first one that I, and then I just hit the ground running, trying to figure things out because I just, again, with the cool factor, I was like, okay, this is going to be cool. Like, I want to have a record label. This is like,
well, what is so you're saying this record label, like, what does that mean? Like, how many bands are like how many bands are on there?
Gosh, I don't know because I kept signing people.
Yeah, I mean, but like, what was your role in that though?
Basically, I always tell people the origin story from that, and then when I went from musician more actively like, oh, I'm a musician, to now I kind of just tell myself that I'm kind of on the business side of things. I think that the switch flipped in my head because I always tell people like, listen, when I was just, I'm a guy with a guitar and I'm just doing my own thing. I tried to call WYP, I tried to call DVE, and I was like, hey, like, I mailed them my CD, and I was like, hey, here's my CD if you want to play it, and no one ever played it. But then the second I thought it'd be fun to try to run a record label, and I started working for my friend Chet Vincent, all of a sudden I'm sending his record to DVE, and I said, hey, I'm not just some guy with a guitar. I'm like, I get to spruce it up a little bit. I'm like,
yeah, this is a label.
My name's Jeff Betten. I'm with Wild Kindness Records. Here's a new release from Chet Vincent and the Big Bend. Would you like to play it on the morning show? And the producer gets back to me. He's like, yes, we would. Thank you very much for sending it to us. And I thought to myself, wow, I'm really good at this.
Yeah, like legitimized it to a certain degree.
Yeah,
like,
it kind of clicked. And yeah, it was like, okay, this, I'm still having fun. I'm still having a blast at that. So I enjoy it. And, that's the sweet spot too, when you're good at something and then also, you're out, you enjoy it as well. It's like, okay, there we go. That's the Venn diagram right there where like, just run with this.
Absolutely. So, I mean, you take over that record label and you just, build from there. And like, where does the idea of, this record plant like really start to take place?
So it actually, the seeds of it probably started maybe that year, if,
What year is that?
So this was 2012, 2013. And so, maybe let's give it 6 months, and then all of a sudden people are asking for vinyl too. At first I was just like, I don't even know what this meant. I just said like, hey, do you want to be on my label? I'll put out your record. And my friends said, sure, it sounds fun. But then they started saying like, well, you're our record label now. Record labels put out vinyl. Can we have vinyl? Because in 2012, 2013, vinyl was already coming back.
Yeah.
Like as a present tense, like the wave had already started kind of like gradually coming up and up. Especially hipster indie kids like us. We were, on the front lines of that. We're like, hey, we want vinyl because that's what all us cool hipster kids are doing.
Yeah.
And so, I never said no to anyone because I just said like, okay, well, that sounds great. But I don't know the first thing about ordering vinyl, so I will look into that and I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And at first it was fine. So like, oh, someone, the album wasn't ready until like, 2 months before the album release date. Is that okay? And then, people will say like, oh yeah, that's not a problem. We can take care of you. But over the years, like slowly, it was like 2 months turned into 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months.
As far as lead times to get your projects back.
Yeah. And so, excuse me. And then even more, 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, 12 months.
Really that long?
Oh, yeah.
A year?
Oh, yeah.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. So it started getting really bad. And so basically, and that was, by that point, I had been doing kind of okay for myself to the point where, like I knew people like in the mayor's administration. And so like, they'd invite me out to have drinks with them and to, talk like as a small business owner in the community. And they'd say like, hey, so if you really wanted to like expand your business, and we could help you in some way with that, what would you want to do? And I thought about it and I said, I told them, I was like, well, it's really hard right now to order vinyl because there aren't enough plants. And I said, well, why don't we have one here? I can do that. I had a friend who was doing kind of a smaller scale version. He was just making them by hand. So I was like, well, I can call him and he can help me figure things out. Like I'll figure out how to do it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the power of the internet nowadays. If you're interested in something, you could figure it out all the way.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, so if it started back then and you like, kind of planted that seed, when does it really start to like, wait, let me rewind a little bit. So he asked you, what could I do for your business to like help expand that? You're talking about as far as like the record label.
So this was in 2018. We were kind of having this conversation.
Yeah. Now let me ask you, the record label that you're doing, are you planning shows within the city?
Yeah.
Okay, so so you're active in that way, and you're seeing enough people asking for it, where you know that there's going to be a demand for it.
Oh, yeah.
So you figure that out. I mean, like, what's the next point of just bringing that idea up to the next step of looking for location? Like, how does that come to fruition?
So we kind of got started with that right away, pretty much, just because it was part and parcel with the business plan that we were writing. The location actually took a lot longer, but at least we had an idea of what we needed. Basically, we needed an industrial facility, loud, heavy machinery, but with air conditioning in it. Because we couldn't just have one of those random steel buildings that gets to be 100 degrees in the summer.
Yeah. Now, I mean, for you to kind of like figure out what exactly you needed, how did you even, approach that, to tell them like, I'm proposing this, like, how do you even figure out where to start?
So we actually had a lot. I mean, again, there was a lot of resources online. There was just people at other vinyl plants that we knew.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Just from ordering vinyl and also kind of looking around. And,
yeah. Okay, that makes sense. So you had like resources to like kind of give you an idea of what kind of things you would need. Okay, that makes sense. So you're in Lawrenceville now.
Yep.
Was that the original? Was that like the only location you checked out?
It wasn't the only location we checked out, but when we were kind of getting ready to put our flag in the ground, that was the only one that really checked all the boxes for us. So we really lucked out with that amazing location that we have.
Where else could it have been?
It could have been a lot of places. We looked at, in Ross Township, some industrial parks. We looked off of Springard Avenue up in the north side.
Yeah. Bunch of different places.
Yeah, a lot of places, even outside of Allegheny County. Like we looked in Westmoreland, we looked all over the place.
Now, whenever you started, like, kind of figuring out what you wanted to do with the record plant, like, I mean, how do you even conceptualize like what you need and like what you're going to start out with, and like kind of how to just get the process rolling? Like, do you have to get like special certifications and stuff like that, or like any sort of like hoops that you got to jump through like that?
I hope we don't, and because my answer would be like nope, and I hope that that the vinyl record certifier Pittsburgh isn't listening. Yeah. He says, "Oh, really?"
I doubt he's listening. But like, so you're talking with like the the council or whatever. Yeah. What's their role in this?
Well, a lot of it was helping us get permits for the electrical.
Okay.
And because we actually had to add we had to upgrade the electricity. We had to upgrade just a lot of it because it was kind of just like a big cement block of a building with not a lot of amenities. Or
you said it was a car wash before?
Yeah. Wasn't exactly move-in ready when we got started. So
and while you're, so you started in 2018, like how long does it take for it to like get the build out done?
Yeah, so basically it took a year or two just with Duquesne Light and figuring out all that stuff and doing the construction. COVID happened, so it took probably it like up until like our first order we got running like November 22, and we say we officially started in 23 casselles when we delivered it. So we say kind of like established in 23 because then we felt like, okay, well, we delivered a product, so now we're up and running.
Yeah, like official.
Yeah. But yeah, so 18 to end of 22 was basically COVID plus trying to get money plus trying to do construction. So
yeah, all them hoops to jump through. Now, your first order that you did this, like, I mean, like how long did you do, how long, like, did you have someone come in and like teach you how to use these machines? Like, is that like the idea of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The company who built the machine for us was actually super helpful in a lot of the stuff that you're talking about. Like, how did we figure out X, Y, and Z? They kind of provided that for us.
Oh, cool.
And then they also did come down and say, okay, Kate, here's how you do this, that. Here's how you do this other. So they were really helpful with
That's cool that I guess they would have to be. I mean, like if you're like about to start a business, they have to be resourceful to you. So I mean, your facility that's there now, I mean, like we were talking a little bit about like the technology. So there's like an old technology to make records. Can you like kind of explain the difference compared to like the older stuff towards, the newer technology?
Yeah. So basically the fundamentals are still the same. So that has not changed. Really what has changed is back in the day, you needed like a boiler room, like an old school, like think of like, like the furnace in Home Alone where like it's like laughing and screaming
Freddy
with you. And there's like flame shooting out of it.
Yeah. Oh shit. So you had to have something to keep all the material hot. Mm-hmm. Ah, okay.
Yeah. So you actually don't need it now because we have a lot of big tanks and all that stuff, but we don't need, it all just runs on a closed loop. So
yeah, so I mean, like, and the machine now has you have the extruder machine that just heats it up for you rather than like keeping it all. Ah, okay. Yeah. So yeah, a little bit more user friendly and forgiving.
Yeah, and I always think of it as like like the best the best way I can think of it too is like, have you ever seen that gif of it's like the guys that are just like covered in mud and their shirts are off and they're just like I think it's like an oil refinery and they're just like trying to get all those machines moving.
Oh yeah.
I always think that like it's like that's not as exaggerated, but that's sort of what it was like back in the day. Like you needed a lot more.
Yeah.
Put a little more blood, sweat, and tears into it. Now it's like there's just a digital interface where you type it in with your finger. Like, oh, I want
have some
this
settings.
level of pressure, this heat, this amount of time, and
it's super wild because going in there and like touring all that, it was cool to see. You told me back, you showed me all the chemicals needed for this. You showed me the extruder machine, which is what makes the PVC pellets, and melts them down into what you called the donut. Yeah. Which is basically like literally looks like a donut.
Yeah, or like a hockey puck.
A hockey puck. Yeah. And then if it's the record type, you roll it in the certain color, different color PVC pellets, and then it goes into the press. So this is where, one of the most fascinating things about the whole experience was because, I never really understood how, everyone understands how, well, I guess they might not even understand how a record fully works, but they know that a record is just, they know what it looks like. They know that it has grooves, and they know that if you put it on there, it plays through a needle. I never really understood how you got those grooves into this vinyl with the accuracy that it needed to play these records. So what I learned there is that you have that like, what comes. They're like them dies. Are those called the dies that you molds? Yeah. Now that's someone different that you work with, right? And I mean, like for you to. I mean, can you explain? Can you dumb it down how a record works through the grooves?
Yeah. So I mean, basically, the easiest way to demonstrate this to anyone is, if you put a record on a turntable, just don't turn the speakers on, and then listen very closely, because if you listen, you don't actually need the speakers. It's already making sound just by running that needle over, because it's a physical process. There's those tiny little grooves, and it's almost like a music box. Like, you know how like a music box goes around and it goes plink, plink, plink?
Yeah.
It's the same theory, basically.
Oh, okay.
Because, yeah, like, as it's those teeny little grooves that the needle runs over to make the vibration that makes the sound. And so all a speaker does is it amplifies that.
Yeah. Huh.
But yeah, like if you do that, that actual process is taking place on the record itself. And so what they do is, to make that record to work backwards from that, is the molds are the inverse of what that record is.
Oh, okay.
So it's the exact opposite, because you're making a mold, right?
Yeah.
So to mold it into that precise, it's just the opposite. It's just the complete exact inverse of that.
Oh, wow.
So you get melted plastic, smashed in its side A and side B. So
Yeah.
on the top and the bottom. And yeah, so on the metal, because we heat it up and it's got to get exactly into those grooves, and then we solidify it so you can hold a record in your hand.
That's pretty wild. Yeah, you put all that melted donut in there, and then it presses down 2,450 pounds of pressure.
Yeah.
And then you trim off all the excess with that trimmer machine. And it's so cool to see all that. And it was cool to like sit down there and like, seeing all these test pressings and all the uniqueness through spreading in that PVC pellets.
Sure.
And then you pulled them into the back room. Now, can you explain, the QC part of everything? Like how you guys do that?
Yeah, well, we're just listening to every record we make just to make sure that, it's going to sound good and that there's no defects or there's nothing wrong with it. Because there's a lot of things that could potentially go wrong with it, and thankfully it rarely does. But, we're mostly just listening for, you develop a checklist in your mind. You're not hearing too many pops or clicks or, it doesn't sound warbly.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess like over the time your ear becomes more in tune to it.
Yeah.
Now in the facility, you guys do the packaging as well.
Yes.
It's like
we do the assembly work. Yeah.
Took me through all that. Now, like, what was the idea from like when you first started this plan to where it is now? Like, is this exactly how you kind of wanted to start this?
I think it is. I mean, I did not, in my mind, when I started walking down this road, I could not conceptualize where we are now.
Yeah.
I always, I just feel like I'm just making up as I go along a lot of times. So a lot of it, I guess we could say it's just, we've just kind of been adding on as we go, and it's been working out. We've kind of had a plan of what we wanted to do, but, I'll even actually put it this way. The cool thing about how we've been doing it is, like, as we bring people into the company, it really is a collaborative effort. It's not like I'm hiring you and I'm going to pay you minimum wage and you're just going to sit there and you're going to assemble records for us. No, we're a big collaborative effort where, your job title is not necessarily what you're doing 8 hours a day. You've got input in every aspect of what we're doing.
Yeah.
And we're all kind of bouncing off each other for ideas. And it's like, well, what if it was better if we did it this way instead of the way we're currently doing it?
Yeah. Your team of people that were helping down there. What was the guy's name who was helping on the press? Was his name Derek?
Yeah, Derek.
Yeah. I can't believe I remember that. See, Derek, there you go. So like, everyone seemed like, and the other guy that was helping with the QC, I do not remember his name.
Orlando.
Yeah. It was just cool because you're talking to both of them about all these things, and like, you could tell that everyone is like super interested in it all. And it's, it got to be an interesting environment to work in because, it's exciting. You're doing this cool stuff. You're working, making cool records for all these different bands and everything. It got to be exciting, now as a small record company, how do you how do you get the name out there and expand without having the growing pains of not being able to, like, you know, because if you're opening this resource of being a record facility and you just get bombarded, like, how do you manage, like, you know, spreading the word on what you're doing?
We've been doing it slowly and surely over the last, you know, almost 2 years coming up on, basically. We had studied a lot of vinyl plants who had done exactly that, and so we tried to be very, very meticulous and very, very careful about not setting ourselves up for failure like that. Exactly.
Yeah.
So we actually had a really long process where we kept it a little closer to the vest. You know, I had a record label, so, you know, the bands on my record label knew about it, and we would do a lot more of their albums than anything else. But you know, and then still, you know, friends around town.
Yeah,
Pittsburgh.
like word of mouth.
Yeah.
You would, you know,
A little bit would start leaking out.
it.
Yeah. And so we kind of allowed that to kind of like trickle in naturally too. We didn't do a whole lot of, like, you know, we didn't rent out any billboards or anything like that. We actually didn't even go live with the e-commerce version of our website until just a couple of months ago, because we didn't really want to turn the faucet on full blast.
Yeah, for sure. Because I feel like, I mean, like, it is a good resource to have, especially local. Sure. You don't want to deal with shipping other places, which is, you know, it's wild to think about. But, you know, for you guys to, you know, figure this out and you know, grow in a way, I feel like, you know, it's unique to mention that you guys are fully capable of doing these, like, customized, you know, pieces of vinyl.
Yeah, whatever you imagine, we can make it happen.
I mean, like, was that, like, you know, was that in the forefront of your mind whenever you wanted to create this business? Yeah.
Well, actually, one of the reasons vinyl kind of made the revival and the comeback that it had is because people realized you could do all these sorts of cool things.
All these weird, unique splatters and all this shit. Like, you want to have, like, a collectible, you know, a collectible piece.
Yeah.
Are you a big vinyl collector yourself?
Oh, huge, yeah.
Yeah, you just have a big ass room of vinyl. It's probably overwhelming. I mean, I could probably get crazy into it and, you know, start collecting a lot, but I nipped it in the bud. I did. Most of those records behind you on the ground are from my dad, and, like, I'll have some other ones, but, like, it's an expensive hobby. But it is as an artist, you find that artist that is like that you love, and you're like, hell yeah, I'm getting a vinyl of, like, an anniversary of this. Like, it's that's dope. I mean, it got to be cool to work with all these different musicians on, like, creating this, like, piece, right?
Oh yeah, because, I mean, when you think about it, it's like, you know, that record that you put in your hands, that's somebody's, it's all their hopes, it's all their dreams, it's all their blood, sweat, and tears. You know, someone can work on a record for years and years, you know what I mean? Because you're like, no, it's just not right. I gotta, you know, one more song, or I gotta fix the guitar solo on this one part here. You know, so lots of people, you know, they spend a lot of time, a lot of effort, you know, and, you know, we don't take that lightly. And it's, you know, it's a really cool thing to think about. Like, man, this is, you know, and then on the flip side, someone is just going to love the crap out of this record. They're going to listen to this record and they're going to, like, yes.
Yeah,
they're gonna be like, yes, this is it.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's a like I said, it's a unique experience to, like, put it on and, like, you know, have it the whole way. And I think that one of the interesting things that, you know, because once I started to hear about what you guys were doing, I went to the website. I was looking at the website, and I thought it was cool. What stuck out to my mind is that, you know, you guys are musicians, you know, that are doing this. So it's like, you know, you aren't just, like, you know, some big, you know, big ass company of just, like, someone that's just, like, loaded, that's just looking for a way to make some money. It's just like, you guys are, you know, musicians, and you know, you have more invested than, you know, your average person, I would guess.
Yeah. And I mean, I think the reason we all ended up here in one way or another is because we're obsessed with music.
Yeah.
And so that's, like, we're not a bunch of accountants who said this would be a really good investment, this would be, like, a great place for us to park our money, or, like, you know, even if you're looking for a job, you're like, well, I could go work at Hellbender Vinyl, or I could work at Walmart.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, oh, well, this is a job. Like, no, for all of us, it's, like, way more than just a job.
Yeah, I mean, like, because you have this cool place and you want to just, like, keep, you know, growing it and making it, you know, making it have long lasting effect of it all. Now, I mean, obviously you guys are still, somewhat new. What are the goals of Hellbender?
Responsible growth, obviously to grow, but in a responsible manner, especially.
I like that. That's a good way. Responsible growth. That's a very good term.
Yeah. And I mean, in a way to, continues to benefit the community too, because, I'm a lifer in Pittsburgh, and I really want this to be a resource for the community first and foremost too.
Yeah. Are you someone that's still out playing shows and doing things like that?
I haven't played a show in a minute. I played shows pre-COVID, and I haven't really gotten back on the horse. So I'll have to figure that out sooner or later. Yeah. But yeah, no, I will one day again. I just have to figure out the time, because now I've got this huge endeavor as well. So.
Yeah, I mean, this has to be a lot. What do you do for your mental health to try to keep it under control? Because I mean, I'm sure that this is
what mental health.
Yeah, it's always funny because I'll ask all these people these questions, and everyone's just like, "Yeah, there is none, dude. I'm fucking crazy."
Yeah, explain what do you mean? What do I do for my mental?
Like Austin from Carson Street Deli, I was like, what do you do for yourself to manage all this stress? Because he took on this business in Southside, and he's like. He just started shaking his head. He's like, there's not. And I mean, I don't know. It's important because it's overwhelming because especially for a record plant, I feel like it's such a unique thing. And there's not really a bunch of, I mean, it's not the same as running a food truck or a restaurant. It's certain things you got to figure out. So it's your process and your stress level to do all this. I mean, I don't know. You seem like you're figuring it out pretty good. It's are you just a big internet guy? You're always researching, learning online?
Yeah. I do feel like I'm kind of an autodidact in that sense. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Now, I mean, for you, as far as the record, how could you? Is there a way for you to describe what you do down there? Obviously you do the customs, but you also do 7-inch, 10-inch. It's you guys are pretty capable of doing whatever anyone wants.
Yeah. I always tell people, if you can dream it up, we can make it happen.
Easy as that, huh? Yeah. You think there's anything that I forgot about talking about the record plant? I mean, anything that you wanted to touch on with it? I know it's a loaded question.
Yeah. I mean, I just consider myself so lucky because I get to wake up and I get to make people's dreams come true every day.
Yeah. I mean, so after me and Dylan were there filming, we went back to his place and we were filming a little bit more for this. And we just went through his whole record collection, and it was so cool to think about, you pull out these records and you see the cover art, and you see the, it's so much more than just clicking on your phone and listening to the song. You have you're helping create these rites of passage for people who are artists, because we were talking about nowadays how there's modern records for obviously all this modern music, but then there's this vintage classic, these records that you've bought from thrift stores, got from family members. And it's cool because now artists that are younger get into it. Obviously, they were born late, so they didn't have this opportunity to make a record, but now you have these resources what Hellbender is, that these new artists could experience that and have a project on a piece of vinyl and check that off on their musician's bucket list.
It's one of those things that people say to me all the time. I never felt like I put a real record out until I got it on vinyl, and I got to hold that in my hands, and it had my name on it.
Yeah.
Because there's just, it's accessible and that's great, but it's just not the same when you're just looking on your phone and it's on Spotify with a bajillion other things, and it's just it's a little not special.
Yeah. Jack White has a quote that says, you never really have a piece of music in your collection unless you have it on vinyl. And it's cool because that's really what it is. It really feels like that. Yeah. And then you have other people that talk about, they have these big ass rooms. Like I was reading about Quentin Tarantino's record room, and like how he just like scores movies. He'll play movies and he'll just like pull random records out and play things and like try to find different things for different scenes. I don't know, records, cool stuff.
I feel like it just makes you feel like you're part of the pantheon, because I think we all associate records like, the Beatles and, Led Zeppelin and, Guns N' Roses or whatever. And then it's like, you're like, okay, well, like now I have a record too. Like I'm, in some small way, I'm kind of
part of that.
Yeah, part of that lineage.
Hell yeah. You have some music that you've performed on any vinyl? Yeah,
we did a 7-inch a little while back. I'm working towards a record right now, so I will put out more on vinyl. But
that's cool. Did you do this at a different vinyl spot?
Yeah. So we did that with some friends up in Toronto.
Now, your process of that, though, did that... was that a good process as far as like trying to get your vinyl done? Like you were saying, you wanted to be a resource for as far as like time frames. It's notoriously known that if you are ordering vinyl, it takes a long time, but you wanted to, kind of change that.
Yeah. Like I said, I come by it honestly. I've been on both sides of the coin now. So
that's interesting. All right. Well, we're not done yet. We have to move to the ending segment of the podcast. So the ending segment that I do with everyone is an ending segment called Desert Island Questions.
Ooh.
All right. Desert Island Questions. Whenever I give each guest 3 categories to take with them on a desert island and use until they starve to death and die. First category is 3 movies. So you have to pick 3 movies quick off the top of your head that shoot to your head that you would just take as DVDs to just use if you were stranded on an island.
I think this one's easy because I always have like the 3. I can never say what my favorite is. I always have like at least 2, probably 3. So I'm a musician, so I'm going to say Almost Famous by Cameron Crowe. I'll save the other one for last because it's an obvious one. But my highbrow answer is La Dolce Vita by Fellini.
I've never seen it.
It's an Italian movie. It's in black and white, but it's good. People just the whole movie they're just bopping around Rome, getting drunk, making out with people, having a good time.
La Dolce Vini.
La Dolce Vita.
La Dolce Vita.
Yeah, means a good life.
Wow. Okay. What about the third one?
The Big Lebowski.
Big Lebowski.
Love it.
That's a good one that's chose on here. Good.
Love it. Yeah.
Okay. So second question. Do you read at all?
Yeah, sure.
3 books.
Yeah, that's gonna be tough. I would say I'm a little nervous that some of these will be cliches, but it's like On the Road was a big formative book for me. I would say. We'll count poetry too. I'd say just off the top of my head, I'd say Leaves of Grass by Walt Whitman. It's a pretty thick volume. It would take me a while to get through it. And let's go with another old one. Well, I was gonna say Leaves of Grass will count as my old timey, really thick book because I was also gonna say Moby Dick, but I would be remiss if I actually didn't say my favorite book of all time is The Great Gatsby. So.
Oh yeah, Moby Dick is on my to be read list. It's a pretty good.
Yeah, it's gonna take you a while.
Yeah, long time. A slog.
Yeah, it's a really it's a thick book, and it's also written in the 18th century or the 1800s. So the language is like not quite what we're used to these days. So.
Are you a big reader?
Oh yeah, I love to read.
Yeah, I love reading. I'm late to it, but it's a great thing. Are you reading anything currently?
I'm always kind of sort of in the middle of several things. Friend.
Are you more of a fiction or nonfiction?
Mostly fiction. Some nonfiction too. There's a really cool nonfiction book called "This Is Your Brain on Music" that I recommend to people. It's actually a pretty easy read because it's a guy who's a neurologist, but he was also a musician. So he's like I can combine the worlds of like music and also why your brain responds to certain things in music.
Oh wow!
And he wrote it for a general audience, it's not like a PhD kind of thing. So just whoever is like, oh, how come these kinds of songs are so catchy?
That's cool.
He explains it to you in that book, and it's kind of neat.
Cool.
It kind of like helps you learn a little bit more.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Have you read any biographies on any musicians that were cool?
I'm always reading some kind of stuff. I mean, I'm trying to think of the last.
I walked through Barnes and Noble the other day through all their biographies, and like there's so many different ones, and I'm like, man, I just got to. I usually just read fiction, just weird.
I would check out
novels.
the Steve Jobs autobiography. That was a good one. I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Walter Isaacson.
Okay. Third category is 3 CDs to take.
I can't take vinyl with me.
Well, yeah. Forgive me. God damn it. Forgive me. What will your 3 records be?
Well, I think we talked about this at the plant when you guys came. I think Pet Sounds would have to be on there because that was like my, we talked about Moby Dick. That was my white whale for a little while. I had a reissue version, but I was like, that's, I'm like the guy from High Fidelity. I was like, I want the original copy. So I'd say that. There's probably going to be some other 60s records too. I'm going to try not to say Beatles because I feel like I can at least avoid that. I'll be a total hipster and I'll say Trout Mask Replica by Captain Beefheart and his Magic Band.
Okay. And
then this one actually was a CD originally, so I'll redeem the question. My favorite album, my actual favorite album of all time is Maybe You've Been Brainwashed Too by the band New Radicals.
Wow. I got to check out.
Yeah,
the two.
They're known as a one-hit wonder because they've got that song "Get What You Give," where they were like running around the mall and like it was like the late '90s, like 1998, 1999, and he kind of had like that floppy hat that he wore over his eyes.
I think that does sound familiar. Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, so a lot of people think of them as a one-hit wonder. They only put one album out, and then the guy was like, I don't like touring, so they broke up and they quit. But it's an incredible album. He's actually gone on to just become a professional songwriter, so he's written, and he's like a Grammy Award winning songwriter now for other people like Carlos Santana and Michelle Branch. And
oh wow, Carlos Santana, classic.
Totally.
Okay, now I'm curious, what's the best concert you've ever been to?
I was actually just thinking about this the other day because I rediscovered the album that happened. It was 05 or 06. It was at Hartwood Acres when Cat Power came and played in support of their album at the time was called The Greatest.
Wow.
But just like an old school Memphis soul band behind them, and it was amazing.
That's a good answer.
Yeah.
Okay. Third to last question is the Death Row meal.
All right.
So the Death Row meal, you get an appetizer, a main course, and a dessert before you get put to death. What is your last meal going to be?
Well, joke's on the executioner. I'm just going to pick cheese sticks for all 3.
All of them. Cheese sticks, honestly, I think cheese sticks, people are always so surprised to hear that cheese sticks are like one of the most picked things on here. And I've interviewed like 285 people. I usually ask people, every single person I've done this with on every single episode.
Love that.
Cheese sticks, I think, is the most commonly picked appetizer.
Well, and I mean, they're not good for you, but if it's my last meal anyways.
Yeah, just a mountain of them
yeah,
all.
just, like,
That's a good answer.
Yeah.
Are you a dessert guy?
I'm not usually.
Cheese sticks, just cheese sticks.
Yeah, the marinara is a dessert.
Okay. All right. Second to last question. You're getting ready to go on a road trip.
Right.
You go into a gas station. Yeah. What's the snack of choice?
Snack of choice. I've always been a Doritos guy, but I'd probably look to see if they have any Pringles too, just because, if I'm driving, I might not want like too much cheese dust on my hands. So.
That's a good idea. Thinking ahead.
Yeah. Strategy.
I used to love Pringles so much, but I don't appreciate them as much anymore.
Well, the thing I like about them is they always have a different flavor. So you're not like, oh, I'm getting, I would understand if you're like, okay, I'm not tired of the original flavor, but then it's like, okay, but now I got sour cream and onion.
Yeah, but there's other chips. It's just like, what gets me is that like seeing how they were made.
Oh yeah.
You ever watch how Pringles are made?
I've never. Maybe I should. Maybe it'll turn me off.
They like blend everything up and they press it. So it's like it's not a slice of a chip. It's like pulp.
I'm a little sad to hear that, but now that you're saying, I'm like, you know what? It does make sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. You're like, how could they get every slice the exact same?
Yeah. Well, I just assumed that they had a machine that just like gave you a perfect slice.
Yeah, but what do they do with the concaved ends that are like, you're only going to get a perfect slice for like a quarter of an inch, and then it starts going down.
At least in terms of rationality, I would say that you probably like at a minimum. If they weren't doing them the whole way, they probably do what we do with the records where like you cut off the trim and then you grind that up and you turn it into more records. So at minimum, I'd be like, okay, I can understand that they turn them into like
100%
pulp.
That's what Kit Kat does. Did you know Kit Kats do that?
I didn't
Any
know that.
broken piece of the Kit Kat is what is actually ground up and put on the inside of the Kit Kat.
Oh, neat.
So they recycle it.
When you take a bite and you're looking inside. And
Everyone's like, "What the hell is that?" That is recycled Kit Kats.
I love that. That's perfect.
It's crazy to think about these big these big businesses like Dum Dums.
Yeah.
The mystery flavor.
Oh, yeah.
That's all of the flavors after they're done doing all of the batches.
I've heard about that.
Ain't that crazy to think about that? We're idiots because we're buying extra toasted Cheez-Its from the store, and those are just the mistakes.
Yeah.
They're repurposing them and selling them to us.
I'm starting to think that the Oops All Berry flavor wasn't an oops.
It was a mistake. It was, or it might have not been. That was probably the one where they're like, that's probably a good idea.
You're starting to. I'm starting to think that these are like conspiracies. So I'm thinking like, is the Oops All Berries flavor really an oops? Like,
who knows? We'll never know. Okay, last question. If you could have a conversation with anyone alive or dead, who would it be and why?
Alive or dead? Is there a language barrier?
No language barrier.
Okay, we just have like the little babblefish from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, I guess.
100%. You'll speak with each other.
Okay, let's say Da Vinci.
Oh yeah. Well, now why? Tell me.
Because I feel like he's just an interesting guy to speak to. And if I didn't have that little babblefish, I'd say Ben Franklin for the exact same reason. Not because, they're brilliant, but I think that they'd be a good hang. Basically.
Yeah. Now, Da Vinci, you think Da Vinci would be a good hang?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think he'd be a little wild, right?
Well, in a good way.
I guess,
he was such a dabbler. You know what I mean? Like he's a painter, he's an inventor.
Yeah. I feel like
he's a man of science.
Because I feel like hanging out with Da Vinci, you're not going to have a conversation necessarily. You might just be an observer in his craziness of him dabbling, like you said, which would also be a good.
So maybe you just buckle in and get ready for the ride. Yeah,
just buckle in. You don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah. Same with Frankly. Yeah, it's just like, okay, I'm just gonna go on your wild adventure. And let's go.
It's like, bro, let me see your wood tooth.
Yeah.
All right, dude, I appreciate you coming over and talking to me a little bit about what you do.
Thank you.
Now take a second and promote Hellbender Vinyl, like everywhere people could find it, what you do, the whole deal.
Yeah. So it's Hellbender, HE double hockey sticks Bender, like the salamander that we are named after.
Oh my God, I didn't ask that in the conversation. Okay, I'm sorry. I usually do this. We have to stop this for a second. So Hellbender Vinyl, you just talked about it, but now talk about it again for me.
Yeah, so Hellbender, we wanted a name that, reflected, paid homage to where we are. We're in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. But we just thought that, no offense, I hope we don't get angry letters from anyone who runs a business. It's called like Three Rivers or Steel City, but we just thought that those naming techniques were just a little played out. We didn't
beat to death.
We just thought Steel City Vinyl, Three Rivers Vinyl, like it was just like a little cliched. We
Steel City Vinyl literally sounds like a vinyl window pane or like vinyl windows or something.
It might be out there.
Yeah, it might be.
Yeah. And then they just passed the state law where they made the Hellbender the official amphibian of the state of Pennsylvania.
How did you know that?
Well, it was actually on just, it was around. It was kind of making the social media things. It was kind of cool because it was it was actually to raise awareness because their natural habitats are being threatened because they're really sensitive to pollution.
Wow.
So naming it, it was actually, I want to say 9th or 10th grade. It was a high school classes project to get the law passed.
Oh, that's cool.
Because they wanted to raise awareness that their habitats were being threatened.
Wow.
So it was kind of like a PR stunt for Hellbender salamanders.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's so it's a cool story, a cool origin for the name.
Yeah. And so, we thought that was like, what a neat way to kind of like pay homage to, Pennsylvania without also, being like Keystone State Vinyl or, there's all a bajillion cliches that we could have gone with, but that was one where we're like, okay, well, like this is like a new one. So no one's really jumped on this train yet, so we'll jump on it. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, we just thought that was cool too, and it's a little metal, but without being Steel City.
Hell yeah. Hellbender Vinyl. I mean, hellbendervinyl.com.
Yeah, hellbendervinyl.com, Hellbender Vinyl on all social media platforms. whatever you're into. And
People could just hit you up about doing custom projects.
yeah, they can. Yeah, they'll Instagram, TikTok, Visco, whatever you're into.
The hell is Visco?
That's just something some of the kids are into. So we've got
Is that a social media?
Yeah, we've got a profile there.
How do you spell it?
It's VSCO.
VS. Oh, is it like you edit photos on there and
Yeah.
stuff? Oh,
It's kind of like Instagram.
wow. I didn't know the kids were using that nowadays. All right. Well, I appreciate you doing this. I am excited to, see what else is going on. And I feel like that, as a benefit to all the people that might not be musicians, it's going to be cool to see the musicians that we do enjoy in Pittsburgh, have a resource to get some vinyl.
100%, man. Yeah.
All right. Everyone else that's listening, appreciate you as usual. Each and every week, we're back with another great guest doing another great thing in the city. Thank you for listening. Call you right back.